looking for a place in Las Vegas, somewhere near our children. It doesn't have to be next door to them, but near our children. The three of them, my three boys in Las Vegas, live very close to one another. And it'll be better for Landry and for me. I've got a re-election coming up, and I've been through a few elections.
When I read this yesterday, I said, well, you know, villain, be careful the words you choose. I mean, gee, no one likes to be called a villain. So I looked it up in the dictionary. Uncouth person. Well, I acknowledge, Madam President, I probably wasn't born in a place that most people would like to be born in. I wasn't raised the way most people like to be born. But I would hope over the years that I'm not uncouth.
But I want to talk to you first about this thing with Harry Reid. The book does not make clear where he actually said this, where he made this statement that because he has light skin, Barack Obama has a good chance of being elected, and because he doesn't have a Negro accent. Who did he say that to?
Bob, that is the incredible thing. We confirmed this morning that he said that to one of the authors. And what he was trying to do, he was talking to one of the authors, for this book, and what he was trying to do was explain his early support for Barack Obama, how no one knew that he'd come out early for Barack Obama. So he actually said this during an interview for this book. Now that, of course, caught his advisors totally off guard. This leaked out late Friday night, about midnight. So he spent all day yesterday, we confirmed this morning, he made 35 different phone calls, mainly to African Americans and leaders, trying to apologize and get himself out of this mess.
And I don't know how anyone of Hispanic heritage could be a Republican, okay? Do I need to say more? Today is a big day in America. Only 36,000 people lost their jobs today, which is really good. I met with some people while I was home dealing with domestic abuse. It has gotten out of hand. Why? Men don't have jobs. Women don't have jobs either, but women aren't abusive most of the time. Men, when they're out of work, tend to become abusive. Our domestic crisis shelters in Nevada are jammed. It's the way it is all over. My staff has always said, don't say this, but I'm going to say it again because it's so descriptive, because it's true. Leader Boehner mentioned that tourists lined up in summer and winter. Long lines coming into the Capitol. In the summertime, because of the high humidity and how hot it gets here, you could literally smell the tourists coming into the Capitol. The other definition is I'm a scoundrel or a criminal. Well, I'm not a criminal. I'm not a scoundrel.
Agents are working with Utah state prosecutors in a corruption investigation into possible wrongdoing by two of the U.S. Senate's most powerful figures, Majority Leader Harry Reid and rising Republican star Mike Lee. But the FBI has been prevented from furthering its investigation by the U.S. Justice Department. Washington Times executive editor John Solomon has more.
The FBI then went to Washington to talk to what's known as the Public Integrity Section, the section of the Justice Department that handles corruption cases, and they were turned down in their request to use a grand jury to investigate these two senators. They then returned to Utah, and the FBI agents then began working with two state prosecutors, the district attorney in Salt Lake County and the district attorney in Davis County. One of those prosecutors is a Democrat, one of those prosecutors is a Republican, and together they've gathered some of this evidence, and they say they're troubled that the Justice Department isn't looking at this from a federal perspective and forcing them to use state laws to look at two prominent members of Congress. I think at the end of the day, the concern is that the normal process has sort of been thwarted, and as a result, we in the public, we the taxpayers, may never find out the truth about these two senators.
To read more from John Solomon, you can go to WashingtonTimes.com.
Your decision yesterday to reimburse your campaign $17,000, was that an acknillagement that it was wrong to use your granddaughter as a vendor? And could you say why?
No, in fact, it wasn't. We complied with all the rules that was said. I just wanted to avoid, and I'm very fortunate that I can write that check. So it's all done. But everything was complied with beforehand. I'm not going to answer it.
In the first place?
Read my statement.
All right, joining me now right here at the Hannity Big Board, she is the co-host of The Five, our good friend, and also a lawyer, attorney in her own right, Kimberly Guilfoyle. All right, let's take a look at the FEC letter that he received, and it goes on to say, you know, will you please clarify the following description of holiday gifts?
Yeah, when you see this investigation, it's not just, smoke. There's a full-blown fire here that's going on because it's not one isolated incident. There's a number of things here that rise to the level potentially of being illegal, and that's why there is this investigation. I'm happy that they're doing that. They should check it out because this is something he's obviously concerned about, and we do know that he has made some payments back because he's been caught, and then you heard the report as well that he was disingenuous with reporters, people calling to find out and to reveal the identity of his, granddaughter.
And the history goes on here. We're going to move a little bit further here. Now we have the Friends of Harry Reid. They report the receipts, disbursements, and what we have here is page 166 of the document, the name Ryan Elizabeth, purpose holiday gifts, and there you see the figure. I mean...
And you see here the name of the company. This is why it was difficult to kind of pierce this veil and find out who exactly was behind it. Ryan Elizabeth is his granddaughter. It's the daughter of his eldest son. And purposely the last name Reid is left off, which was difficult to then find out the true identity and who's the beneficiary
of it. Which tells you by
this.
design. All right.
Just wanted to avoid.
Let's go to the other screens here. We got, okay, $11,370 holiday gifts, as we showed.
From her jewelry company, right? So that was for the beneficiary of, of his granddaughter to be able to get that money, and her theater company too.
Right, and then of course, we got $5,630 more in 2013. That's $17,000. Moving to the next screen.
So he's essentially conceding that by paying that back.
All right, so you have $17,000, then you got $9,000 in 2013, $5,000 more in 2012. So that's $31,000. Now, if you actually look at the jewelry company here, according to BuzzFeed, the jewelry is about $70 a piece. So now, if we're looking at, that means to buy just the original $17,000, that's over 200 pieces of jewelry as gifts, campaign funds?
It's pretty substantial, and he should know better than that. This is someone who's been in office for a very long time. It's pretty sloppy. It's very obvious, and then you have the reports.
Sloppy or corrupt?
It's corrupt. It's unethical. It's morally not even questionable. It's just flat out wrong to do this. He should know better, and now he's been caught. Now, whether or not he's going to be legally held accountable is going to be a question for the FEC and whether or not they can
when you
get to the bottom
hear
of it.
of the 2006 deal, we have other scandals now we'll put up on the screen, and we don't have enough time to get into all of them. This is only part one of an investigation we're going to do. Somebody buys a house, sells a house you haven't owned for 3 years, and you make $700,000. And since he's been in Congress, he's become a multimillionaire.
$6 million. How is he getting this money? Where is he getting it from? Because it's like he gets by with a little help from his friends, and then some. So, and you look at the evidence is there. So the public really needs to take a good look and question whether or not this person is suitable to be in office.
The most powerful man in the United States Senate, however, Majority Leader Harry Reid and his son Rory, who failed in a bid for the Nevada governorship, involved themselves in this effort to crush one individual citizen. There are reports tonight that Chinese energy giant ENN Energy Group is actively targeting the land in question for a solar plant project with Roy Reid's help. And the principal director of the Bureau of Federal Land Management, the bureaucracy at the center of this conflict, is Harry Reid's former senior policy advisor. Thank you very much. And of course, no one, whether they hold elected office or are private citizens, should be above the law. Our first guest tonight says rancher Cliven Bundy's problem isn't that he didn't pay user fees or fines. It has nothing to do with whether his cattle were bothering tortoises. It's simply that he's not a Harry Reid donor. Joining us tonight, Dana Loesch, conservative radio talk show host, anchor of The Dana Show on the Blaze TV network. Dana, good to have you with us. You've been following
Thanks for having me, Lou.
You've been following this story. I mean, these relationships amongst Senator Reid, his son Rory, the federal government, even Governor Sandoval has been to China to glad hand with the ENN Group's executives. What is going on here?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it, Lou? If there wasn't this sort of incestuous relationship between all of these donors and these individuals that had worked with Senator Reid, I think it would be fair to say that there's probably nothing going on here. But unfortunately, there's precedence which states otherwise. We know for a fact that there are a number of projects that of Harry Reid donors that have received the golden stamp of approval from the Bureau of Land Management in this same particular area. One of those, and I gave example of that on air, was Harvey Whitmore, and this guy was convicted of illegal campaign contributions by the tens of thousands of dollars to Harry Reid. He had a development that was in this same area. The tortoise, that desert tortoise, was in the way, and very conveniently, Senator Harry Reid, after he reportedly approached the senator, the Bureau of Land Management just very conveniently moved the boundary lines of the tortoise habitat to better accommodate Harvey Whitmore, who again was convicted of illegal campaign contributions to Senator Harry Reid. So there, you have to ask the question. The law is the law, and I think we all agree on that, but it needs to be consistently applied, because what is the law if it is inconsistently applied? And what is the law as well if this is a law that is sort of based upon a bastardization of what constitutional law and what state law is dictating regarding private property? And so these are all questions that are finally coming up, because it's not...
As the new head of the Bureau of Land Management is Harry Reid's former senior policy advisor. The incestuous interrelationships here seem to speak of something much larger and, frankly, potentially sinister beyond simply a government trying to crush one citizen, as if that weren't enough.
Right.
Where do you think we go from here?
Well, it's going to end up in the courts. It was curious that Senator Harry Reid just now, later today, as you reported, finally mentioned that, well, this isn't over. You can't have individuals just sort of ignoring the law. Well, that's interesting, because then it comes back to consistency, Lou. You have people who've donated to Harry Reid who've been inconsistent in following this law.
Allegation? It's ridiculous. That'd be a great story if it were true. I don't represent anybody, Chinese or otherwise, that has an interest in developing anything on that land.
The other definition is I'm a scoundrel or a criminal. Well, I'm not a criminal. I'm not a scoundrel.
Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.